in my 20s, I felt like I was riding a car that I didn't need to take care of. It had gas, and because it always had and it always will. So I was riding, not looking at that little gauge at the bottom of the dashboard that was telling me that I was about to run out of gas. And I did in the middle of nowhere. And it's, not a pleasant experience that no one else should go through. So there are ways, and we'll get into that now, to just refill the tank.
Welcome to the Product Agility Podcast, the missing link between agile and product. The purpose of this podcast is to share practical tips, strategies, and stories from world-class thought leaders and practitioners. Why, I hear you ask? Well, I want to increase your knowledge and your motivation to experiment, so that together we can create ever more successful products. My name is Ben Maynard, and I'm your host. What has driven me for the last decade to bridge the gap between agility and product is a deep-rooted belief that people and products evolving together can achieve mutual excellence.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Product Agility Podcast. Now, today, we're joined by somebody that, once again, I met in Portugal. There's a recurring theme with some of the recent guests. Remi Ribas Policastro was one of the conversations we had at the very beginning of our time at the Productize conference, and we wanted to get some more time in to speak because Remi brings a very interesting perspective onto the worlds of product and agile. And so it's with great pleasure that we welcome him back to the podcast. So Remi, hello.
Thank you so much. Hello, and thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yes, so hopefully you'll be saying that at the end too. Now, I'm going to give you an introduction, Remi. Remi Ribas Policastro has two hats. One is a B2B tech revenue hat. It's his biggest hat. And he helps B2B tech companies grow revenue while building meaningful relationships with their customers and partners. He is an absolute superstar in optimizing prospection, improving closing, and reducing churn. He's also, and it's been said by some, a direct sales ninja and a channel superhero. Now, the second hat is one of well-being and emotional regulation with a supersong of team building. Now, when we discovered that emotional regulation was a skill and that as such, it can be learned and mastered, this was a pivoting moment in his life. So he packed all of his findings in that area into a nice little package so that he could share them with all sorts of crowds. Remi firmly believes that if we want what we've never had, we must be ready to do what we have never done. So Remi, once again, welcome to the podcast. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you, Ben. Quite an experience to sit through an introduction of myself. Thank you. You've done it beautifully.
Thank you. I am very excited to have you here, as you can probably tell by my British waffling, because the first topic, and this is the topic which you said to me is the, maybe not these exact words, but the great equalizer in life, which is stress. And we're going to talk specifically around stress management, which isn't, on the face of it, not a particular product-y kind of topic, but we will get into that, I'm sure. So, Remi, stress management. What has been your journey with stress management?
My journey. I guess my journey started when I realized that I was subject to stress. Before, it was such a progressive infusion on my day-to-day that we adapt to that new reality of being stressed all the time. We just little by little lose our sleep, lose our temper, become more reactive, and that's it. We think that it's part of our personality and the new version of who we are. To a point that, in my case, it became problematic. I burned out, and I was not equipped to deal with the stress that was accumulating. I couldn't even give it a name. And so my journey started there, to understand what I didn't know anything about. And so little by little, reading stuff, talking to people, I became more aware of interoceptive sensations, so physical sensations, and how to deal and release them, if that makes sense.
So you mentioned there sleep, temper, and being more reactive. Now,
Yep.
I'm guessing that those are terms, phrases, which mean something to most people that are listening. Now, I'm assuming that these aren't just then related to stress, but we're saying that actually, if you're experiencing these, there is a probability that maybe stress has have an impact on your life that you're not aware of.
That's it. I mean, because the symptoms arrive bits by bits. So it changes reality, then we accept reality, and we're like, oh, that's it. That's how it's always been. Because the human brain is particularly bad at making prediction into the future and remembering accurately past experiences. Studies have shown that in many different ways, and one that is particularly eloquent is when we put people through a bad experience, an uncomfortable experience, and people remember just the peak of that experience and the last of that experience. And the rest of it is insignificant in our memory, which gives us an incredible adaptable power because we can get used to pretty much anything in a good way as in a bad way. And stress is just one of them. We tend to drink coffee like the cups of coffee, like they are Tic Tacs, when they have like a pretty strong impact on our nervous system and our stress levels. Now, an important point, stress is not bad. Stress is, when it's managed, it's a good thing. It makes us focus. It makes us driven. It makes us sharper. Stress is the hormone behind stress is the cortisol, as you may know, and generating it in the morning, it's perfect. It makes us do stuff, getting through to-do list, getting driven, moving on, and so on. Now, the problem is when we don't regulate that during the rest of the day, then we have that accumulation of cortisol at night, in the evening, and this is what keeps us up. And then the sleep is kind of the first brick of the puzzle, because when we start losing our sleep, it has all sorts of impact on the next day, on the next day, on the next day. So it starts accumulating. Like
I'm definitely in a situation where a good, strong sense of urgency on my to-do list does get me started very well in the mornings. I find that if I can go have a little bit of stress, if I put the pressure on a little bit, it does keep me motivated. What I'm wondering then is when we know that too much stress then will impede our ability to focus, to concentrate. It gets in the way of our decision making. If we leave it unchecked and it just builds up and up and up, or
that's it.
Yeah.
You've said it. So it's about being intentional. It's about knowing when we're stressed, why we're stressed, and getting on board with it, not being in denial or not being in the position of the victim, being victimized by our own stress, you know? Stress is something that we should manipulate, and so that we instrumentalize it in our life in order to be productive, in order to be driven, in order to be competitive, for example, but not to just simply open a door and to the potentiality of being eaten up alive by our stress levels.
Yeah.
Because then this is no fun. This is no fun for us, but this is also no fun for people around us, maybe coworkers, family members, or pets.
Or pets, yes.
Or pets.
Although my wife said to me last night, she said, we've got a cat, his name is Giles. And Giles is great for your mental health, she said, because he gets you to switch off and relax. Because once he sits on you, you're not going anywhere for like 5 hours because he's not going to move. And you feel really waking him up. But pushing Giles to one side, as I often have to when I need to do something, are we then saying that if we can use stress as a tool, we can motivate ourselves to achieve more than if we 100%. Just become a slave to stress?
That's it. It's a genie in the bottle. We need to keep the bottle so that we can put the genie back in it when we need to. And especially when we need to recover, to rest, which is sleep. Because then from there, this is the pitfall. This is when things go bad, when our sleep start to be impacted.
So we are saying that we can achieve more and we can increase our performance in our professional lives and our personal lives if we can find a way to steer and, I suppose, throttle back and accelerate our levels of stress given that context we're in at that point in time. So for each day we keep going through, but it's when we can't throttle back the stress that then we go to the evenings with too much cortisol in our bodies, which then impedes our sleep. And then it impedes our sleep. So we wake up the next day and we're then on the back foot. And it's going to be harder for us then to, I suppose, instrumentalize our stress because we're fatigued. Is that a fair summary?
That's 100% it. And so we need to be more intentional about how we manage our day and don't let our days drive us, but gain control, gain agency over our days, basically.
Okay. So I want to loop back a second, and you feel free not to go into this if it's a topic you don't want to touch on. But you mentioned about burnout for you personally. Yeah. Like, what happened there?
Oh, I'm a cliche. I did the whole menu. Like, we are in front of our little spreadsheets and in Zoom calls and traveling the world to do meetings, but like it's not that serious. It's all just, sometimes we tend to forget that it's just all a game. And I did. To burn out, I definitely forgot that it was just a game. I thought it was way more serious than it actually was. And, yeah, panic attacks, and the first ones, they're pretty scary because you don't know what's happening, or at least when I say you, I didn't know what was happening, and it's kind of of an experience of dying, and because your body is not responding the way you want in a pretty intense way. So yeah, it made me reflect what was important, but there's no catharsis. Like, everything happens bits by bits, but it was certainly the trigger, the turning point.
I've definitely had panic attacks. Are panic attacks the same as anxiety attacks?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Well, I've had a few of those in the past, and they were stress related.
Sorry to hear that.
It's fine. Maybe the man I am today, and I'm quite pleased with that. I think it's been a great experience. I look back at those times and I wouldn't have avoided that learning, because it means that I wouldn't be able to deal with as much as I'm able to deal with now. And I think that's something that I believe people no one chooses to do it. But I think when you have the opportunity to learn and to further yourself and to evolve, we get very worried that we're letting go part of ourselves, that a part of our identity is being chipped away because we're no longer that person who does that thing. We're now a new person that does something differently. And people say, well, I feel really uncomfortable about me changing. Like, who will I be? And I think that holds people back to doing some of the work, the necessary work, perhaps, to avoid a life of lack of sleep, of stress, of never quite achieving what you're potentially capable of achieving.
Yeah, no, that's quite true. And look, I embrace everything. These panic attacks, for sure, and I've learned a great deal from them. Now, I tend to think that we learn actually a lot more in doing failures and hardships. But when it comes to health-related ones, and especially self-inflicted to some level, because it's not necessarily conscious, but it's self-inflicted. Stress is. Now, we don't necessarily have a choice in that given moment, or we don't feel like we have a choice. But I think we can be a lot more vocal and a lot more what's the word? A lot more united or compassionate, and not try to hide this under the rug. And on the contrary, like, put it on an open place, so that when it arrives, when it happens, we don't, on top of that pretty intense or traumatizing experience, feel isolated or feel like something is wrong with us or feel that we're unworthy or that we're weak, or because all of that is created by just a lack of communication. And yeah, I think we can do and a lot better with coming generations to talk about mental health, to talk about stress management, to talk about emotional management. Because as much as we do, as much as we strive for, we're humans, and nothing will ever be worth ruining our health or impacting negatively people around us.
I see this as a twofold thing, because I think people would be listening to this thinking, well, I don't feel like I suffer from stress. Why is this important to me? And I was wondering, what would I say to that person? I think what you were saying a second ago about it's a lack of communication. I think some people, it's the ability to communicate it because they haven't got the words to communicate it. They haven't got the labels. And I think it takes a certain amount of courage when you're not sure how the other person's going to respond to it. So I think kind of understanding this and having some idea about how we can help people through it is a great service we can give to our fellow human, our peers, our colleagues, to actually put ourselves in a position where if someone does have the courage to try and communicate how they're dealing or not dealing with these types of situations, it means that we're in a stronger position to have that conversation with them. So I think this is important for both those that do feel that they are kind of living with or that stress is overtaking their life versus those that actually think, oh, I'm all right. Actually, there's a service we can offer to our people around us, which could be very useful for them. So if we kind of take this idea of what can we do then? So one is, we can learn about it. We can be there to talk to people, to listen to people. And if we flip it from talking about what is stress and what causes it to actually, how do we then manage it? What are the things that we can do to turn the tide and to actually use it as this nitro for productivity?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Harness it so that it feeds us, it drives us, instead of not listening to any signs on the way and just running out of gas. And it could be in the middle of nowhere. And then you have a bit of a hike to go to the next petrol station, and it's lonely and it's hard. And to take the metaphor about running out of gas, because this is kind of what it is. In my 20s, I felt like I was riding a car that I didn't need to take care of. It had gas, and because it always had and it always will. So I was riding, not looking at that little gauge at the bottom of the dashboard that was telling me that I was about to run out of gas. And I did, in the middle of nowhere. And it's, not a pleasant experience that no one else should go through. So there are ways, and we'll get into that now, to just refill the tank every now and then. Sleep is an important one. Sleep is actually both a way to fill up your tank and a way to know how much you have left in your tank. Because if sleep is bad, it means that there is underlying causes of it that needs to be addressed as well.
So if people are recognizing what you're saying there, are you saying that the thing to do is it's not about listening to whale sounds and buying some lavender so that you can fall asleep more easily? I'm assuming there's things that we can do before our bedtime routine to help lower those cortisol levels so that we can sleep, rather than just trying to make our sleeping environment better. So
sleep environment, it does help. I don't have a particular routine or ritual, but sure, if it relaxes people and it gives them into a space where they feel more comfortable, at ease. So one of the thing, and it's very important, is exercise. Because before anything, we are a nervous system. And so if we don't release tension from a nervous system, our nervous system will not switch from sympathetic one, which is the stressed one, the driven one, the fight or flight one, and into the rest and digest one, the parasympathetic one, which is the one we need to be in to fall asleep. And one of the common misconceptions around calming down is that it's best not achieved through trying to calm down, but actually through first exciting ourselves to a point where our body is able to make that shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Because every day, microaggression, passive aggressive email, that guy that didn't respect the traffic light, or the guy who didn't pick up the poop of his dog on the sidewalk and you stepped in, all of these tiny stuff are building up. You're tapping into your sympathetic nervous system. Now, how do you make that shift, that transition into your parasympathetic one? Well, some exercises consist of calming down, so slowing down your breathing, etc. But it's effective to a point. The best way by far to slow down and shift your nervous system activity is by exciting to a point when effectively you can release. Basically, it's simulating you being chased by that lion that our ancestors and our body evolved to do. You're alert, you run away from the lion, then you calm down. If you observe animals, they do that super well. They get scared off, they run like hell, crazy, and then they calm down. So if your audience is listening to this on a podcast with headphones, and a quick exercise that they can do is walking in a park. They walk slowly, and then out of nowhere, they will run literally like there is a lion behind them. And they will do that for about 100 meters, 150 meters. Then they slow down, and then they stop. That state, once the breathing has calmed down, when the heartbeat has calmed down, that state is parasympathetic state. This is the state when we are able to relax, let go, and sleep. Because sleep is about letting go. That's exactly what it is. This is about accepting that we are going to go through a tiny death, and hopefully the next day we wake up.
That's a terrifying way of putting it.
But sleep it is. It's accepting the inevitable that our body needs to shut down. But for a lot of people, sleep anxiety is a thing, because that ability to let go is a skill. And we best explore it by first learning how to stress our nervous system for real, like real good stress. Exercise is a beautiful one. Or release, basically. Like if you see children, they scream, they cry like there is no tomorrow, like the world is ending. And after, they're calm. They probably fall asleep, actually. They literally cry themselves to sleep. Now, we can do that in an intentional way so that we don't have that emotional response that is coming out of nowhere and it's uncontrollable. We can generate that emotional response, which is nervous system activity. It's the same. And we package it right at the right time for us so that then we can shift to parasympathetic stuff. I feel that was a very long answer.
No. Well, it was a long answer, but it wasn't too long.
Okay. You think it's helpful?
We're on the way. We're on the way. So yes, there is sleep, and there is ways to then really engage the right kind of sympathetic mode so that we can relax and we can kind of dissipate some of that cortisol. If we find ourselves more in the moment, so we're sitting at our desks, we get that passive aggressive email, and we just feel this reaction, something's going on for us, right? How do we manage our stress in the moment? So what I'm saying about it is with less planning, with less forethought, how do we deal with those in the moment stressful situations?
This is a really nice one. I do it all the time. My wife has adopted it, and I'm converting more and more people. So the first step is to feel that boil that is coming up. It'd be like, ooh, this is a nice one. I can feel my ego getting crushed. And then as soon as we have that feeling, if we're at home, and a good few of your listeners, I'm guessing, are working remote, very simple. You go to your bedroom, you grab a pillow, and you scream. You scream your heart out in your pillow. You wait. You see. Perhaps that email requires a second scream, perhaps a third one. And then I guarantee you 100% you can come back to your desk and it's like nothing happened. This is fascinating because when we are in that moment, we receive that email, it's very towards our ego. It's like, how dare that person? This is insulting. Let me see kind of response I'm going to make. Who do you think they are? And so on and so forth. You go scream, you come back, nothing changed. The same email, the same situation, and yet you don't have that urge, that drive to like get justice, get fairness, whatever it may be. All that narrative is gone because it's purely a nervous system activity that is triggering an internal narrative. So this is the remote, the home office pillow situation. If you're in an office, it works really well. Going to the bathroom, biting into your hand and doing it. Just screaming. The thing is, it looks weird. I can see, I can hear, but it works. It really works. And it's sort of an emotional hygiene. Like we brush our teeth to get rid of the bacteria. And then this is the same. We bite into our hand and we get rid of that like residue from our emotional system that we don't have any purpose for. And if we don't do it, if we don't have that emotional hygiene in our day-to-day life, that emotional awareness of like avoiding drinking coffee after 2 p.m. or avoiding working out at night or not realizing that we are boiling inside and having that little scream that can help us move on and go to something else, then it accumulates. And this is where you have autoimmune diseases. This is when you lose sleep for good, and so on and so forth. All of that is because we spend too much time into our sympathetic nervous system, which is immunodeficient. Our immune system needs us to be in parasympathetic mode. So we get more, and all the entrepreneurs out there, or it has a real impact on the business bottom line. People less sick is less sick leaves, is more productive. We tend to see wellness as like a nice to have, and it's in the perks and stuff, but it's actually, and I'm truly convinced of a business opportunity. How to be more resilient, how to be more adaptable, how to innovate better, how to have stronger teams, and all of that is achieved through regulating our emotions.
It's fascinating when I think about it, and the times when I've gone into an empty room just to shout or do something like that, just to relieve something. I remember my dad used to randomly shout. I thought he was just weird. Maybe it was just because he was releasing some stress. I'm not sure.
100%.
But I do wonder that a lot of us are, I think, schooled in some ways not to have those showings of not aggression, but that outpouring, to make noises, to take ourselves in a room and do something to help us just relieve some of that tension. I think maybe particularly, I know British culture is known for it, right? The stiff upper lip, the not wanting to seem like we're flustered, to not do anything that could be seen as a bit odd or strange. But I think that even just the thought of doing something like that, I find quite cathartic. Like it gets something off of my chest and helps clear my mind. So I will be definitely
100%.
trying that.
Please do, and let me know.
I will. I'll record it and I'll put it on as a trailer on the next podcast.
Sounds good. Again, I think animals, or when you're talking about your dad, this is something we can see of animals when they get stressed out, like two dogs that meet. If there is like a little moment of uncertainty, and if like they're not clear about the intention of the other, it's gonna bark, it's gonna run, and then that's it. It's gone. They release that tension, and now they're chill. They're just walking around. And the thing is, or we live in a very the urban life. It's very sanitized. So we lost that touch with what's happening internally. The fancy word is interoception. It's basically the ability to recognize what's happening inside our body. And it's critical, because if we don't build that interoceptive ability, we have no idea what's happening inside our bodies. And then it's a black box. It works until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you don't even know where to start.
I think we need to draw this episode to a close so that we give ourselves enough time to record another episode. So what I'm wondering, Remi, is that we've covered quite a lot of ground. We've looked at the effect of stress and ways to manage that stress. If people are listening and they're recognizing what you're saying and they're wondering where to start or where to find help, what advice would you give that person who has resonated with what you've said, but is unsure as to the next step that they should take?
Thank you for opening on that, because it's a very important point. I am not a medical doctor. I am not a therapist. So all the advices that I'm giving are for managing moderate levels of stress, not life-threatening level of stress. And it's extremely important to require appropriate care for anyone that is experiencing symptoms that are beyond discomfort. Now, the best place to start is really noticing, building awareness. And I am addicted to podcasts and to having constantly something, a read, a listen, talking to someone, etc. But the best place to build awareness is by cutting off distraction. Having that moment. Tim Ferriss has a great say on, if you cannot meditate for 10 minutes, if you don't find the time to meditate for 10 minutes, then you need 20. So awareness is very simple. It means taking the time. Can be a walk, can be seated meditation in silence. It's anything where we're just observing our body and looking at anything that is not something we should accept, whether it's discomfort or pain or numbness. Numbness is a big one as well. And then little by little, as we build awareness of our body, we understand better what we need, whether it's not drinking coffee after 2 p.m. or, and we're all different. My routine is very early. I wake up in the early hours of the day, but I don't have an alarm. That this is just my circadian rhythm. So everybody is different. And from awareness, we're actually able to build something that fits us and not something that is the one size fit all, because this is doomed to fail. So awareness. How do I feel for real?
Yeah, so take some time out. If you notice something that doesn't feel okay, feels different, feels numb, then take 10 minutes to see if you can understand what that is. And it's something you said earlier, that it's these events happen and it's just our nervous system triggering a story. And I think that's quite 100%. A lovely way of putting it. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering what the hell's going on for you, if this in some way resonates with you, then try and take 10 minutes out and see what you can do to learn more about yourself in relation to that. And I suppose if you do feel that it is something that is not manageable, then do seek help from a professional. Don't let it go unshared, because it's amazing the kind of support 100%. People can get.
That's it. So building, maybe if I can just sum up in a nutshell, building awareness, it's about making space. Now, some people feel better doing it walking. Some people feel better doing it resting in silence, or journaling. Journaling is a very powerful tool to reflect and be like, all right, I cannot go anywhere. Here is a paper, pen and paper. How do I feel? Part by part. And I write down. And then it's self-discovery. Look, it's scary for most people, but I don't know anyone that's been down this road and regrets it. It's so rewarding. The relationship that we build with ourselves is a way. Is that a word? Yeah, I think.
If it isn't, it is now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. Incredibly rewarding. And the people around us, it's contagious. The people around us benefit from it. We benefit from it, and that's it. It's a chip in the humanity's kitty.
Lovely. So Remi, thank you for motivating me, and I hope lots of other people to do that introspection and to use stress as this fantastic tool that it can be, rather than be something that uses us. If people wanted to find out more about you, is LinkedIn the best place for them to go, or is there somewhere else they could head to?
Yeah, it's the most central. From there is a link to my website, to my post, to my Medium post and stuff. So yeah, LinkedIn is the most central one.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. And everybody, thank you for coming on this little journey with us. If this episode has meant something to you and you do want to talk about anything that's been covered, then feel free to, I don't know, drop me a DM on LinkedIn, maybe even kind of contact Remi. We can't perhaps offer you professional help, but if there is something you want to bounce off us, then by all means reach out. I'm sure we'd happily deal with anything that comes up. And if you feel that this episode is maybe useful to somebody that you know, then why not share it with them? Who knows? Maybe it will make a difference to their day. So thank you very much everyone listening. Remi, thank you for coming along again. And we shall be back again next week.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Lovely talk.